Well, seeing how some things blew up on Twitter a little bit, uh, with as far as like writing, showing and telling, all that whole other gamut of stuff, I figured I'd try to break down some things maybe a bit further. Uh, One guy, Alexander, brings up, don't know what writer needs to hear this, but snark slash sarcasm doesn't equal characterization. You might think it does, but it makes those characters insufferable. And if you think people are like this in real life 100% of the time, then chances are you might be insufferable too. Majority of modern stuff has characters that snark 24/7. And that does get to be like come on, isn't there more to you than just making quippy pithy comments towards everything? Um, I'll take Gulliver as an example. He'll poke fun at things, like that's part of what he does, but he's very selective at when he does it. He does have a little bit of snark to him, but underneath he has genuine affection for the Ayer family. So, and he's again a lot older than he looks because I gave that away a little bit with it when he was initially sitting in the medical bay watching all the proceeds, and he just gives a polite nod to Mr. Apple, like, "Hello, sir. So good to see you again." That sort of thing. So yeah, that Gulliver has a couple things up his wings that are going to come into play later. But when I make him like poke fun at things, he'll say something. I even had him say stuff to the effect of like, that's just how I am. I'm a bit blunt. It's like, hey kid, when he mentioned the lady, he's basically talking about Gino. It's like, yeah, I promised the lady I'd behave. So this is me behaving. Behaving. So yeah, that's what's fun about even making your own stuff. Don't worry about a bunch of writing techniques when you're first going out the door. Look at that stuff later when you've got like a legitimately have a book under your wing. I didn't look at any kind of self-help thing unless it was to like ask additional questions about a little bit of world building. But even then, I'm like, no, no, you know what? Let me just put this aside. I'll worry about it later because I rather learn on my own, like what do I want to put in this world building, what do I want to put in this setting, how do I want to do dialogue. I didn't want to be too informed by other people's coaching or writing self-help books. Just wanted to use myself as my first reference and kind of like library of knowledge type of thing, because I know what I like to read in books. I do it all the time. I buy them all the time. It's like, what draws me into a particular book? All I gotta do is look up that. I mean, first and foremost, like, because everybody's gonna have personal preferences, and when you're writing your own book and own series, that pretty much is catering to you yourself 100%. Uh, that's all there is to it. So, my stuff is going to have, I would say, easily, I mean, looking at my own writing here, I do mostly tell. I might have a little bit of showing in there every once in a while, but I mostly tell because that's what I want to do. To even go back to Gulliver here, uh, let's see. There we go. Gulliver smacked me in the face with a wing. Of course, you doofus. That's the whole point of Typherian bonding. Yeesh, didn't the lady tell you anything about it? Show you anything about it? The most romantic bonds happen after the age of majority. Wait a moment. How old are you, Terrence Standard? See, the thing is, because Gulliver didn't realize, like, wait, how old is she anyway? And how the heck would that, work with the whole Typherian setup versus human setup? Because humans are age of majority 18. And then with as far as like maybe some physicality, about mid 20, they'll have most of whatever's going to develop happen. But for Typherians, it's a little bit slower, but not by much. It's not like I'm doing humans versus elves kind of aging thing. Um, it'll come into play later, like once the characters actually go to Typha and everything. But as to example, I had Gulliver point out, like, wait a second, okay, so Oh man, yeah, and he's like, "Oh, Gulliver did some calculations. Carry the his wings flapped, and he bonked me on the forehead with his beak. Yep, taking an Earth time about 3 or 4 months ago, you should have started feeling a pull or some sort of desire. He targeted me with a multitude of blatant winks." See, the thing is, what I like about a character like Gulliver is, at heart, he does want to do the best that he can by his people. Most of my characters do. He's a little bit, I would say, more of a fun-loving character, even kind of like Master Roshi, but not as dirty of a mind though. Because again, he has a legacy to uphold, and that will also come into play later. So yeah, there we go. Um, but I have him point this out because he's like, wait, what else is happening with this kid? And it's like, ah, that's why. Geez, I thought that scholar would have had a bit more tact, leave you more of the Typherian bonding synapses, but it looks like your doctor lady will have that fixed soon enough. Hello, nurse doctor. We got a 12 in the making. Zing! Because again, he's trying to basically. Because unlike Goku, I'm gonna. Because Goku, it was kind of a running gag that, he didn't really know how to respond to Chi Chi, but obviously since they had Gohan, they managed to climb that aspect of their relationship. But with Eliza, I want that to not be like a thing the whole time. That's the reason why I had that also where Eddie was like in the betting pool, where yeah, it's probably gonna take them a couple more decades, right? Because Eddie was trying to do a safe bet based on what he knew about both of his friends. See, because Eddie grew up with Eliza for the most part, so when I put that in the story, I don't have to put everything on screen. That's another thing. Like, you could do set pieces and move things around sometimes, but sometimes not all the details have to be on screen. You can get it in with a line or two, because, yeah, that's what I enjoy about telling. It's like, kind of like you could just have one line off to the side, like X-Bill tried to basically jury rig the what do you call it, the ambassadorial kind of setup. He tried to basically win through bad faith. And of course, Gino's parents do realize this. They specifically put their daughter in charge because they knew how just messed up that their own stuff was getting. Like, it was getting infiltrated. They know that the Allfather's out there doing shit. They know that Toth is out there doing shit. They know that the freaking Voidwalkers are out there doing shit. But you have to basically hold off on winning some battles, so that way the enemy can trip themselves up some more later, thinking like, oh, we're in the clear, but all along it's like, oh, the other guys actually know what you're doing, at least some of it. It's kind of like how with Babylon 5, how Sheridan had to let his discovery of Morden stay hidden a while longer because they weren't ready to take down the shadows. So, it's kind of like being forewarned is forearmed, that sort of thing. But I guess to get back on the point of like with some writing aspects, when you're starting writing, don't worry about all the other like things that have come before you. Just start writing stuff down on paper. If it's something as simple as the yellow dog jumped over the fence, then that's a beginning. Just keep telling what you want to tell. Keep going. Worry about all the bells and whistles later. Just start doing some basic stuff to get that story rolling. Because that's what I did with Uplift Protocol. The first two drafts were basically me getting the ball rolling and figuring out how I wanted to write things. What was my style? What was my process? Because that stuff, it'll all come with time. Don't sit there and think like, oh, I have to show this, I have to show that, oh, I have to show the character suffering here, I gotta show them crying here. It's like, no, sometimes it's just good to put in a line like they laughed or whatever. I put a little bit more showing in the Signs Importance issue, just because it was a more serious aspect for Thomas and Gino at one point. But for my personal wheelhouse and my preferences with reading and writing, sure, some stuff, again, I can even take Weber as an example. There have been times with Weber's books, especially later ones, where I'll just kind of like speed read through all the technical stuff, unless like this new setup with the missiles or the lax, basically makes relative sense to the story. I'm like, okay, this is the part where I have to know what this tech does. But other than that, I'll find myself skimming certain things so I can get to back to the characters, back to whatever plot is happening. And but I get that there's also some people who do love the big amounts of like info dumps about the tech, because there's people that are nuts and bolts readers. They want to see how everything works within that setting. They want it to make complete sense. They want it to make so much internal sense that it like they can basically quote back at you what each ship does and how they go about it. So again, there's just honestly, most of the time with books, you just try to find writers that cater to a fair amount of your wheelhouse. Unless you yourself are writing something, it won't cater to you 100%. That's okay. I'm good with books that cater to me even up to like 65%. I'll still have fun reading those. But more often than not, most of the books I've had the most fun with usually cater to my wheelhouse about 80%, like my personal preferences or whatever else. So, there's that. Uh, but yeah, I guess what I'll do is I could even link the all the fun stuff that started everything on the Twitters. But yeah, when it comes to reading and writing, your first resource is you. What do you like? Do you like to read endless pages of purple prose that describes everything and shows everything? Because I can tell you this much, even what was it, that Rhapsody series by Hayden, that was very purple prose and very much show. And I found myself at points, like, okay, I'm gonna even though she was very lyrical, it's like I just want to get to the heart of the story. And what I found interesting is her young adult books based on her series setting was a lot more to the point. So I guess in some ways is still some more air quote young adult books that I will read, but it's very far and few and in between and all that stuff. So yeah, you could still have a character that has some sarcastic quips every once in a while, but in my opinion, don't go overboard with that. Give them stuff to offset the more abrasive parts of their personality. Like here, this day was just getting stranger. So what does an Umatash bird look like? He rapped me again with his bill. Not just an Umatash bird, a royal Umatash bird. Get it right, hot sauce. Lorraine sighed and showed me a hollow picture. Said bird had a sharp beak, deep cobalt in color, white feathers everywhere, a blue fringe on the top of the head, like a cross between a flamingo, a flamingo, duck, and a bit of a swan or cockatoo. Plus, it was the side of a Saint Bernard. Oh boy. Gulliver preened. Aw, they still have my baby picture on file. I'm actually the size of hot sauce now. See, that's the one thing I wanted to get with his characterization, where Eliza gives people, a lot of nicknames, but so does Gulliver. But not to just everybody though. Gulliver mostly has nicknames for just who he considers part of the Ayer family. So I'll reveal more of those nicknames later. But for now, yeah, Eliza is hot sauce. Lorraine is hello nurse doctor. So yeah, that's also a little bit of my callback to like Animaniacs with Yakko always saying like hello nurse, that sort of thing. So there you go. That's just a simple thing of it as far as I can tell people, or am I little 2 cents about it. You'll develop stuff over time. Don't worry about the background noise. Just get to writing. You'll develop techniques over time. Just it's just like with drawing and everything. Like I draw a bit, I mean, I'm better at drawing animals because to me, animals have simpler shapes and not as many shapes to them. So, but again, that's just me. Some people prefer drawing people. Eh, So there you go. It just takes time and consistency, and then eventually you'll develop whatever style you're going to develop. Now, will that style appeal to some people more than others? Yeah. I mean, again, take a look at Chuck Wendig's stuff versus everybody, basically. There are people who legitimately like his style, but there's also a whole lot of people that don't enjoy it. When you're developing your style, don't even worry about that stuff in the beginning. Just keep developing. Um, Eventually, you'll get there. I can't wait to see how things change for me in the next 2 years as I'm completing this series. So, there you go. Have a good day, everybody. And I guess to also add on to more of the showing and telling thing, uh, one writer guy I follow, Mr. John Briggs, mentions the advice that he got from his beta reader and editor: showing creates active reading, telling creates passive, preventing the reader from getting engrossed in the scene. The trick is to use enough active showing to immerse the reader without bogging down the narrative and pulling them back out in the same way that too much telling can do. Which, it definitely is a valid way to approach it. I've found, though, like when I'm reading stuff, like, I don't really mind telling all that much. I really don't. I guess maybe it could be just me, or at least the way I basically bring in things. But to me, as long as you have dialogue that showcases what your characters are about, and maybe the most of the showing that I do see sometimes is basically related to like how say how bullets are hitting the wall, or lasers are going everywhere. Sometimes like the doing some of the sound effects for that is usually good enough for me. Again, there's no ultimately right or wrong way to do things. There's preferable ways, I suppose, but don't take everything down as like the golden rule: this must be obeyed at all costs. Because I'll even take myself into effect. Like, for me, like, the way I go about things in my book might not work for you. Or the way I go about in my reading or my writing, it might not work for you. Um, so basically, yeah, take everything you learn with a grain of salt, incorporate it if you can. If it doesn't fit with what you do, then that's okay. Then just incorporate what you want. But the thing is, like that one article about the showing don't tell does ruin a lot of newer readers and writers that are trying to break into this thing. It's like, don't concentrate on showing as the first thing. Just get the bare bones of whatever story it's going to be. Even if it's all telling initially, that's okay. Start off with a basic setup of, say, the duck crossed the street. He found a lake of water and decided to mull about. He found the worms wiggling in the ground and decided to eat them. They tasted delicious. That sort of thing. Like, just do a basic run through of whatever you're going to do for the story. Don't worry about all the added toppings or all the trimmings. Just start off where you need to. Everything else will come in over time. You'll have your own preference come in over time. Honestly, the only other bit I can tell people, is just if there's something you really enjoy in a book, read more of whatever you enjoy from that book, and then incorporate it into your own writing if you want to. But don't sweat the big overall stuff. Just start where you can, and just like running, every day you'll get better and better at it, and you'll keep developing as you go. Like, you writing will probably be different from like a year later. I know for me it definitely is. um, I'm able to put stuff on page faster and, like a good idea of like what I want to do. Um, and also, I even build the issues a little bit different than I used to. Like, um, to where I'll put like, say like I'm making an issue, I'll put in like one line in this scene or in this portion. Susandra gives Tyvis, you know, access to the command deck, and then this problem arises, and then this problem arises, and like this plot hook is here, and then that way I have a basic framework to remember, like, okay, what did I want to do with this particular section of the issue, or even say like with the prison sequence I'm working on with Snake Charmer and everybody else. Snake Charmer's trying to set up his own little cabal of agents to where, because he's already seen the writing on the wall. Initially, when he started out, he's very loyal to his sister, but now he doesn't even find that appealing because he's like, these guys, they're just following Toth's dream. Well, I have my own like kind of twisted dream I want to do. Like, yeah, because again, what'll basically shoot most villains in the foot is their sense of me, and entitlement. The villain's journey is not something that people should try to emulate. That's the reason why I don't really want to make them like, oh yes, sympathetic. Like, no. Honestly, yeah, I want black hats and I want white hats. That's it. Something very simple and straightforward. So yeah, like I imagine everybody's gonna keep having their own kind of like relationship with show and tell. Me, I guess just again what sticks in my craw, because when I was initially looking like how should I write things, I paid attention way too much to how to write and do other things when I was younger, in high school, all throughout college, and I partially blame that, and also I kick myself for not starting sooner. It's like, just ignore the background noise, like I was saying. Just ignore it and write what you're gonna write, and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then TJ is coming in with a good point. TJ Marquis, you should actually go read his books. Rajak is great. Yes, that I can 100% agree with. It's good. It's kind of like fantasy meets superheroes, like a fantasy setting, but it has superpowered people in it. But it's more of a kind of shonen-esque take on some things, but it's still very enjoyable. A lot more fun than most standard down in the dumps modern storytelling. But he's saying here, many people take the advice to the extreme and saturate a story with unimportant detail just to feel like they're showing. It frustrates me too sometimes, but I think the issue is more of a misunderstanding on the writer's part than the problem with the advice in its purest form. Which again, I also put through even in my blog, because I did find a article that kind of sums up it neatly, where he was going on about like the show don't tell is a bad thing to tell new writers or people just starting out, because that's something that doesn't come naturally to most people, and that's true. The more simplified setup of telling is easier to grasp, especially when you're starting to learn how to walk before you run. So again, I'll link that below. I'll link TJ's stuff below, and I'll also link the show don't tell thing that I put on my blog, which will also link some other stuff. But yeah, it's like all these people are trying to give you like, this is how to write kind of books, when they themselves, that's all they write is like these self-help or but have they really put that stuff into practice? Have they seen how that affects their writing? Have they incorporated it into their writing, or are they just telling people what to do so that way they can make a easy buck off of beginning writers that want to basically, see like, how do the air quote greats do it? Don't worry. Don't. The biggest thing that can also trip people up is comparing yourselves to other people. It's like, not everybody's going to be a Stephen King or a J.K. Rowling or everything else. You have to compare yourself to you. Where were you at in the beginning versus, say, a year later of writing? I'm pretty damn happy with my progress. Will I get better as I go along? Yeah. And what I'll do is, like, once I pick up other stuff that I understand how to do things or how to incorporate it into my writing style, I'll go back and edit stuff because it's a serial on my blog, and also I have the main files here. So as I get better, I'll go back and re-edit some things. I might even subtract some things and then put it into something else. You just never know. But what's the most important part is just get on the path, and keep walking. You'll get stuff in time, but it'll be on your terms and not like basically, oh, this is the golden rule. Because yeah, nothing is ever a completely sacred golden rule. People will have to bend various narration tools to their process, not have that overtake their process. If that makes any sense. Because it's just, that's just part of the hurdle of what, like the one guy said in the other article via my blog. Um, Basically, writers, when they're trying to do so much showing, even if they don't really understand why it is they have to show, they think it's writer's block when they can't think of a proper way to show something. It's like, no, it's just, again, just start out walking and then eventually you'll run. That's fine. It'll probably take 3, 4, or 5 books for you to really hit your kind of like stride and everything. And that's fine too. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just keep writing. That's all you really need. And I also do want to make a note that, yeah, the show majority training seems to hate telling just as much as I hate showing for mucking things up. It all comes down to personal preference, which is why I try to make that very apparent with my stances and opinions. That's all this is. This is just me trying to articulate how I go about my writing process, or what kind of stuff I try to incorporate with my own reading and writing. I mean, sometimes it is also easier to see certain things on display if you're reading something you really enjoy and are genuinely invested in. Like something that legitimately captures your attention. Like, look to the parts that really capture your attention as a reader and copy paste them to WordPad or whatever else and see what about that structure captures you. I guess that's really all I can really say for now. Have a good day, everybody.